All right, let's take a look at functions in Python. The first thing that you need to do is open idle. I'm going to go fast here, so you might want to pause at some points to catch up with the video. But idle here is what you get when you download Python from python.org. After I do that, I want a new window, and this is where we're going to write and save our Python functions. Let's do this first. Let's put our name, and we'll say what class we're in. Okay, you also need to be looking at this worksheet right here for this to make sense. Now the first variable, the first function that I'm going to be doing here is f of x equals 2x minus 5. And the way I define it is to write def f of x and return 2 times x minus 5. If I don't put that times there, Python's not going to be happy. I have to tell it what the operation is. Okay, after I do that, I save this. I'll call it functions. And after I save, I need to run it. Now, in my shell here, I'm going to have access to this rule. This function is taking an input x and returning 2 times x minus 5. So we can do f of 100, etc. Here's my input. It will take -5, plug it in for x, and return this rule to me. That's how I got -15 here. You need to take these numbers and stick them into your xy table. Any place where you don't see a value for the input, you're going to be just choosing your own values to fill in the table. Next function up is g of x equals -5x over 4 minus 5. So I'm going to define that right here in the same file. Okay, and if I come over here into my shell and I try to use g of x, you're going to see we get an error. It says name g is not defined. That's because I didn't save this and run it yet. So first I need to save, and then I need to run. Now I've got access to this rule, g of x. So I can do g of -16, g of -12, etc. Now this might take a long time though to do all of the numbers that we want to do on our worksheet. So I will show you a little shortcut. It's called a for loop, and this is going to allow us to get a whole bunch of values in one shot. So I'll say for x in. Now this is where I'm going to type a list of values that I want to use as input. End that with a semicolon, hit return, and I'll say g of x right here. Now what's going to happen is x is going to first take on the value -16, and Python's going to evaluate g of x for me. After it does that, it's going to come back and set x equal to -12 and do the same thing, and it's going to loop through all of these real quick and give me the answer. So you can take all of those values and fill them in on your table now. Next thing I want to show you guys is how to do exponents with Python. We need to do x squared right here. So I'm going to define the way you do an exponent is with a double asterisk. So x times 2 really means x to the power of 2 in Python. And we are subtracting 10 from this. Remember, I have to save and run it before anything will happen. So, for example, h of 100, yep, it worked. Now this variable right here, x, this name x is totally arbitrary. I could have called this q. It's still going to do the same thing. If I save and run, we should get the exact same answer that we got before. Okay? Because it doesn't matter. It's just going to take whatever came in right here and square it and take 10 away from that. Alright, the next thing that I want to show you guys is how to handle this piecewise function here. Let's take a look at what this function says. It says n of x is going to equal 1 if x is negative, and n of x is going to equal 0 if x is bigger than or equal to 0. So here's how we take care of this with a Python function. I use something called an if statement. I'm going to say if x is less than 0, colon, return 1. And if x is greater than or equal to 0, we'll return 0. I need to save. You can use key commands for these shortcuts here. I'm just showing you everything that I'm doing. So if I, for example, do n of a positive number, it gives me 0, like I would expect. If I do n of a negative number, it gives me 1. That's what the function was supposed to do. Couple other hints for this worksheet here. Take a look at number 14. All right. The square root function can also be represented with an exponent. So if you don't remember this from algebra, remember it now. 4, if I want to do the square root of 4, that's the same as raising it to the 1/2 power. So you want to use parentheses right here just to make sure Python knows exactly which power you mean. And the square root of 4 is 2, so we're good. Last hint that I want to give you is how to handle this one right here, number 13. We want to know how to decide if a number is even. The way that you decide a number is even is like this. Take, for example, 5 divided by 2. We don't get a whole number because 2 doesn't go into 5 evenly. All right, 2 goes into 5 with 1 left over. And there's a special operation in most computer programming languages called modulus that is going to tell us what the leftovers are after division. Use the percent symbol and the number you're dividing by. So the way that you read this out loud is 5 mod 2. And if I hit return, I get a 1 because 2 goes into 5 with 1 left over. All right, now test yourself. How many times does 5 go into 17? 3. And how many are left over? 2. So the way that you decide if a number is even is you mod by 2. So 8 mod 2, it's 0 because 2 goes into 8 evenly with 0 left over. If a number is odd, when you mod by 2, you're going to get 1. All right, those are my hints. Have fun.